The desperate transmission, the emergency session of the Galactic Federation Council had been called at the most unusual hour. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their specialized chambers, each designed to accommodate the unique needs of their species. The aquatic delegation floated in their water-filled spheres while the silicon-based crystalline empire representatives stood motionless like living statues. The air buzzed with nervous energy as translation devices worked overtime to convert dozens of languages into understandable communication. At the center of the great assembly hall, a holographic projection flickered to life. The image showed a being of ethereal beauty, with translucent skin that seemed to glow from within and large, expressive eyes that held wisdom beyond measure. This was Ambassador Lyrian of the Zilani, one of the most peaceful species in the known galaxy. Honored members of the Federation, Lyrian began, her voice carrying the melodic quality that all Zilani possessed. I come before you not as a representative of my people, but as perhaps their last hope for survival. Her image wavered slightly, suggesting the transmission was coming from a great distance under difficult conditions. The Zilani had always been known for their pacifist nature and their remarkable psychic abilities. They could sense emotions across vast distances, heal mental trauma with a touch, and communicate telepathically with any sentient being. Their homeworld of Zeloria was considered a sanctuary planet where species came to find peace and healing. The idea that they might be in danger seemed almost impossible to comprehend. 3 cycles ago, Lyrian continued, our outer colonies detected ships approaching our space. We sent peaceful greetings, offering aid and welcome as is our way. The response was immediate and brutal. The Zereth Empire has invaded our territory with a force unlike anything we have ever seen. Murmurs rippled through the assembly hall. The Zereth Empire was known throughout the galaxy as a militaristic society that valued strength above all else. They were conquerors who expanded their territory through force and enslaved those they deemed useful. However, they had never before attacked a Federation member species so directly. They do not seek our worlds for resources or strategic position, Lyrian's voice cracked with emotion. They want us. Our psychic abilities make us valuable slaves in their war machine. They have developed devices that amplify our natural gifts, turning our healing powers into weapons of destruction. Our children are being taken from their families and forced into service. Our elders are being drained of their life force to power their war machines. The projection showed images that made many representatives recoil in horror. Zilani civilians in chains, their natural glow dimmed to almost nothing. Children separated from their parents, connected to strange mechanical devices that pulsed with stolen psychic energy. The peaceful crystal cities of Zeloria burning under Zereth bombardment. Chancellor Thorax of the Insectoid Collective was the first to speak. His massive compound eyes reflected the horror of what they were witnessing. This is an abomination beyond measure. The Zereth have crossed lines that should never be crossed. However, we must consider the strategic implications. Their military might is unquestioned. Any direct confrontation would result in massive casualties. Casualties? Interrupted Commander Voss of the reptilian hegemony, her scales shifting to an angry red pattern. We're talking about genocide and slavery. How can we sit here calculating acceptable losses while an entire species suffers? Because, replied Senator Keth from the Crystalline Empire, his voice resonating like breaking glass. Emotional responses lead to poor decisions. The Zereth Empire commands over 10,000 warships, each armed with plasma cannons capable of destroying a moon. They have conquered 17 star systems in the past 50 years. Their ground forces are genetically enhanced warriors who know no fear or mercy. What exactly do you propose we do against such overwhelming force? The debate that followed was intense and heated. Some delegates called for immediate military intervention. Others demanded economic sanctions that everyone knew would be meaningless against the Zereth. A few suggested sending strongly worded diplomatic messages expressing their disapproval. As the hours passed, it became clear that fear was winning over moral obligation. In the far corner of the assembly hall, in a section reserved for newer Federation members, sat the human delegation. Captain Elena Rodriguez, Admiral of the Terran, Defense Force listened to the debate with growing frustration. Her weathered face showed the scars of someone who had seen real combat, not just political maneuvering. Beside her sat Dr. Marcus Chen, Earth's chief xenobiologist, and Colonel Sarah Mitchell, head of special operations. Humans had only joined the Galactic Federation 18 months ago, after finally developing faster-than-light travel. Most other species still considered them newcomers who should observe rather than participate in major decisions. Their technology was seen as primitive, their ships outdated, their weapons ineffective by galactic standards. Earth itself was classified as a death world, a planet so dangerous that most civilized species couldn't survive there for more than a few hours. "They're going to abandon them," Elena whispered to her companions, her jaw clenched in anger. "They're going to let an entire species be enslaved because they're too afraid to fight." "The odds are genuinely terrible," Dr. Chen replied quietly. "Our entire fleet wouldn't last 10 minutes against that kind of firepower." "Maybe not in a straight fight," Colonel Mitchell said with a dangerous smile. "But who said anything about fighting fair?" As the debate reached its 8th hour, Chancellor Thorax called for a formal vote. "All those in favor of direct military intervention against the Zareth Empire, signify now." 3 delegations raised their approval. Out of 47 member species, only 3 were willing to risk war to save the Zalani. All those in favor of diplomatic protests and economic sanctions. 32 delegations voted in favor of this largely meaningless gesture. All those choosing to take no action at this time. 12 delegations, including some of the most powerful in the Federation, voted to do nothing at all. The math was clear. The Zalani would be abandoned to their fate. That's when Elena Rodriguez stood up. The action was so unexpected that several nearby delegates actually jumped in surprise. Humans had never spoken during a Federation session before. The translation devices temporarily glitched as they tried to process her words in 47 different languages simultaneously. "We'll go," Elena said simply. The hall fell into absolute silence. Hundreds of eyes, sensors, and other organs focused on the human delegation. Chancellor Thorax's antennae twitched with what might have been confusion or amusement. "Captain Rodriguez," he said carefully, "while we appreciate your species' enthusiasm, this is not a matter for inexperienced civilizations. The Zareth Empire has military technology thousands of years more advanced than your own. Your entire fleet consists of what, 50 ships? The Zareth have 10,000. "So?" Elena replied, her voice carrying clearly across the vast hall. "They asked for help. We're offering it." Senator Keth's crystalline form rang with disbelief. "Your species evolved on a death world, yes, but that doesn't make you warriors. Earth's extreme environment produced survivors, not fighters. Your ships are powered by chemical reactions. Your weapons fire metal projectiles. How can such primitive technology stand against plasma cannons and force shields?" "We'll find out," Elena said calmly. Commander Voss leaned forward, her scales now showing patterns of concern rather than anger. "Captain, I understand your noble intentions, but this is suicide. The Zareth will destroy your fleet before you even enter their weapons range. Your people will die for nothing." Elena's response silenced the hall completely. "Maybe, but at least we'll die trying to do what's right instead of living knowing we did nothing." Dr. Chen stood beside her. "Earth's history is full of impossible victories. Sometimes the universe surprises everyone." Colonel Mitchell was the last to rise. "Besides, we've got something the Zareth have never encountered before." "And what's that?" Chancellor Thorax asked. "Humans who are really, really angry," Mitchell replied with a cold smile. The debate that followed was unlike anything the Federation had ever witnessed. Delegate after delegate pleaded with the humans to reconsider. They listed all the ways the mission would fail, all the tactical disadvantages, all the technological gaps that couldn't be overcome. They painted detailed pictures of the destruction that awaited any force foolish enough to challenge Zareth supremacy. Through it all, the human delegation said nothing more. They simply stood there, united in their decision. Finally, Chancellor Thorax raised one of his many hands. "Very well. If the humans wish to sacrifice themselves for this doomed cause, that is their choice. But do not expect Federation support when your ships are burning and your crews are dying. Understood, Elena replied. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, many shook their heads in disbelief. Some felt pity for the naive humans. Others respected their courage even while questioning their sanity. Most simply didn't understand how a species could choose certain death over calculated survival. Within hours of the Federation session, emergency broadcasts went out across human space. Every naval base, every space station, every ship captain received the same message. Prepare for immediate deployment. We have people to save. The response exceeded everyone's expectations, even Elena's. Within 48 hours, a fleet began assembling near Luna Base. Mining ships retrofitted with armor plating flew alongside military vessels. Cargo haulers carried hastily mounted weapons next to exploration craft loaded with Marines. Scientific research ships had been converted into hospital ships. Even civilian spacecraft joined the fleet, their owners demanding to be part of the mission. It wasn't the largest fleet in galactic history. It wasn't the most advanced or the most powerful. But every ship was crewed by volunteers who understood exactly what they were signing up for. They knew the odds. They knew the enemy. They knew they probably wouldn't be coming home. But they also knew that somewhere in space, innocent people were suffering and no one else was willing to help. As the human fleet prepared for the jump to hyperspace, observation posts throughout the galaxy tracked their movement. Most expected to receive news of humanity's destruction within days. Military analysts calculated that the human ships would be obliterated before they could even return fire. None of them understood what was really coming to the Zareth Empire. None of them had ever seen what happened when humans stopped trying to be civilized and remembered what it meant to be apex predators from a death world. The Zilani had sent out a desperate signal asking for heroes. They were about to get something far more dangerous. Humans with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Deathworlders unleashed. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zilani system like a pack of wolves entering enemy territory. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her flagship, the battleship Terra's Fury, studying the tactical display with grim determination. What she saw made her blood run cold, but her expression never wavered. "Report," she ordered. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, the fleet's tactical officer, looked up from her console with barely controlled horror. "Admiral, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. The Zareth have over 8,000 ships in various formations. They're using the Zilani homeworld as some kind of processing center." The main screen showed the beautiful crystal cities of Zeloria, but something was terribly wrong. Dark towers had been erected between the graceful spires, connected by cables that pulsed with stolen psychic energy. Thousands of Zilani civilians could be seen being marched between facilities, their natural glow dim and fading. "The outer colonies have been completely strip-mined," reported Commander Torres from the science station. "They're extracting both the Zilani population and their crystalline cities. Intelligence suggests they're building psychic amplification networks." Elena's hands clenched into fists. The Zareth weren't just enslaving the Zilani, they were industrializing their suffering, turning an entire species into a psychic battery farm. "Any response to our arrival?" "They've noticed us, ma'am," Lieutenant Kim replied. "A formation of Zareth destroyers is moving to intercept about 200 ships." Elena almost smiled. The enemy was sending only 200 ships to deal with, what they perceived as a minor nuisance. Their arrogance would be their first mistake. The communication system crackled to life, and a harsh mechanical voice filled the bridge. The translation software identified it as High Commander Zex of the Zareth Empire. "Unknown vessels, you have entered Zareth space without authorization. Identify yourselves and state your business, or be destroyed." Elena stepped forward. "This is Admiral Elena Rodriguez of the Terran Defense Force. We're here to rescue the Zilani people and remove your forces from this system." The silence that followed was brief, then filled with what could only be described as electronic laughter. "Terran? We have no records of this species. You pilot primitive vessels powered by chemical explosions. Your weapons appear to be simple, kinetic projectiles. Are you seriously threatening the Zareth Empire with such obsolete technology? That's right, Elena replied calmly. This is amusing. High Commander Zex continued. We have conquered 17 star systems. Our ships are armed with plasma cannons that can vaporize asteroids. Our ground forces are genetically enhanced warriors bred for combat. Our psychic amplifiers can drive entire populations insane with fear. What could primitive aliens from an unknown world possibly do against such power? Elena's smile was cold as winter. I guess you're about to find out. The first wave of Zareth destroyers approached in perfect formation, their sleek black hulls reflecting the light of the system's star. They were beautiful ships in their own way. All smooth curves and flowing lines that spoke of advanced technology and supreme confidence. Each vessel was 3 times the size of the largest human ship and bristled with weapon systems that could reduce a city to ash. All ships, Elena broadcast to her fleet, remember your training. Stay mobile, stay unpredictable, and show them what happens when you corner a pack of predators. The battle began when the Zareth opened fire with their plasma cannons. Brilliant beams of superheated energy reached out across space, designed to punch through any known defensive system. But the human ships were already moving, scattering in all directions like a school of fish evading a shark. Evasive maneuvers working perfectly, reported Lieutenant Kim. Their targeting systems can't track our random movement patterns. The humans had studied every piece of data about Zareth tactics they could find. The alien empire was used to fighting civilized opponents who followed predictable strategies and honored certain rules of engagement. They expected orderly formations, direct assaults, and technological duels between similar weapon systems. They had never encountered humans. The first human counterattack came from an unexpected direction. While the Zareth destroyers pursued the scattered human ships, a formation of converted mining vessels approached from below the plane of battle. These ships, originally designed to break apart asteroids, had been retrofitted with the largest kinetic weapons humanity could build. Fire, ordered Captain Maria Santos aboard the mining ship Prometheus. The kinetic rounds that slammed into the Zareth formation weren't sophisticated energy weapons or guided missiles. They were simple tungsten slugs accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit with the force of nuclear weapons, punching through shields that had been designed to stop energy weapons, not physical projectiles. 3. Zareth destroyers simply disintegrated, their elegant hulls no match for raw kinetic energy delivered at impossible velocities. Impossible? High Commander Zex's voice crackled over the communication channel. Kinetic weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your shields are designed to deflect energy, Elena replied conversationally. They're not so good against old-fashioned physics. The battle quickly devolved into chaos as human tactics completely confounded Zareth strategy. Cargo ships used their reinforced hulls as battering rams, smashing into enemy vessels with suicidal courage. Fighter craft, originally designed for atmospheric combat on Earth, used the complex gravity fields around Zaloria to execute maneuvers that should have been impossible in space. But the real surprise came when the human boarding parties launched. Colonel Sarah Mitchell led the first assault team personally, using simple rocket packs to cross the void between ships. Her Marines wore sealed combat suits that looked primitive compared to Zareth technology, but they carried weapons that the aliens had never encountered before. The boarding pod punched through the hull of a Zareth cruiser like a bullet through paper. Breach charges cleared the entry point and 20 human Marines poured into the alien ship. The interior of the Zareth vessel was all wrong from a human perspective. Everything was designed for beings twice as tall as humans, with corridors that curved in impossible directions and lighting that hurt to look at directly. Strange symbols pulsed along the walls, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with malevolent energy. Atmosphere is toxic, reported Sergeant Davis, checking his instruments. Good thing we're sealed up. The Marines moved deeper into the ship, following corridors that seemed to lead everywhere and nowhere. Their boots made no sound on the strange metal flooring, and their weapons were held ready for anything. They met their first Zareth warrior at a junction between three corridors. The alien was massive, nearly 3 meters tall and covered in what appeared to be living armor that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. Its face was hidden behind a mask that showed no features except glowing red sensors. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "Primitive creatures, you should not be here. Our psychic amplifiers will drive you insane with terror." The Zareth warrior activated a device on its arm, and waves of psychic energy washed over the human Marines. The attack was designed to paralyze enemies with overwhelming fear, to make them relive their worst nightmares, to break their minds with visions of everything they dreaded most. Instead, Sergeant Davis just laughed. "Lady, we're from Earth. We grew up with hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and creatures that hunt humans for fun. You want to show us something scary? You'll have to do better than that." The psychic attack that had broken the will of countless alien warriors simply bounced off minds that had been forged in the crucible of a death world. Humans had evolved alongside predators that could kill them, natural disasters that could destroy cities, and diseases that could wipe out civilizations. Their minds had developed defenses against fear that the Zareth had never encountered. The firefight that followed was brief and one-sided. Human weapons, designed to function in any environment from Arctic tundra to volcanic plains, worked perfectly in the alien ship. The Zareth warriors' living armor, designed to stop energy weapons, offered no protection against armor-piercing rounds fired at high velocity. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield as human Marines boarded ship after ship. The Zareth discovered that their psychic weapons were useless against minds that had been hardened by evolution on a hostile world. Their advanced technology meant nothing against enemies who improvised solutions on the fly. Their numerical superiority was meaningless against opponents who refused to fight fair. "This is impossible," High Commander Zex broadcast on all frequencies, as his fleet began to fall apart around him. "You are a primitive species, your ships are obsolete, your weapons are crude. How are you defeating us?" Elena's response came as her flagship opened fire with its main guns, sending a spread of kinetic rounds toward the Zareth command ship. "Because you made one very big mistake, Commander." "What mistake?" Zex demanded as his ship's shields failed under the kinetic barrage. "You assumed that advanced meant better," Elena replied. "But sometimes old-fashioned solutions work just fine. Sometimes simple and reliable beats complex and fragile. And sometimes warriors from a death world are exactly what you need to deal with bullies who think might makes right." The Zareth command ship, its hull breached in a dozen places, began to list toward the planet below. Other Zareth vessels throughout the system started to withdraw, their commanders suddenly unwilling to face an enemy that didn't follow any rules they understood. But Elena wasn't done yet. As the human fleet began rescue operations on the surface of Zeloria, she opened a channel to every Zareth ship in the system. "This is Admiral Rodriguez," she said, her voice carrying clearly across space. "You have exactly 1 hour to release every Zelani prisoner, disable your psychic amplification devices, and withdraw from this system. If you're still here after that deadline, we'll consider you a continuing threat to innocent people." "You cannot make demands," Zex replied from his crippled ship. "We are the Zareth Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems. We do not retreat from primitive aliens." "Then you're about to become the empire that lost to primitive aliens," Elena replied. "Your choice." The hour that followed was the longest in Galactic Federation history. Across the galaxy, species that had considered humans primitive curiosities watched in amazement as the Death World species did the impossible. They defeated an enemy that was supposed to be unbeatable, using tactics that were supposed to be obsolete, driven by a moral code that was supposed to be naive. When the deadline expired, only half the Zareth fleet remained in the system. The rest had already begun the long journey home, carrying news of a defeat that would shake the Empire to its core. Those who stayed found out why humans had earned the nickname Death Worlders. The final battle was not a battle at all. It was a rout. Human ships swarmed the remaining Zareth vessels like antibodies attacking an infection. Boarding parties freed Zelani prisoners while Marine units dismantled the psychic amplification networks. In 6 hours, An occupation that was supposed to last centuries was completely destroyed. As the last Zareth ship limped out of the system, Ambassador Lyrian's voice came through on all communication channels. For the first time since the crisis began, her natural glow was returning to full strength. "People of Earth," she said, her melodic voice filled with emotion that needed no translation. "We cannot repay what you have done for us. You faced impossible odds to save strangers you had never met. You risked everything for people who could offer you nothing in return. This is the definition of heroism." Elena smiled as she watched Zelani children being reunited with their families on the planet below. "Ma'am, where we come from, this is just called doing the right thing." The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The species that had been dismissed as primitive newcomers had accomplished what the entire Galactic Federation had been afraid to attempt. They had faced down one of the most powerful empires in known space and won. But perhaps more importantly, they had reminded the galaxy what it meant to stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. In a civilization that had grown comfortable with calculating acceptable losses and acceptable compromises, humans had dared to say that some things were worth fighting for, regardless of the odds. The message was clear. Earth's children had arrived, and they were not going to be the kind of neighbors who minded their own business when evil was being done. The galaxy would never be the same again. As the human fleet prepared for the journey home, Elena looked out at the stars and smiled. They had come here to save the Zelani, but they had accomplished something even more important. They had announced to the universe that there was a new kind of species among the stars, one that measured success not by what they could take, but by what they were willing to give. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they were exactly what the galaxy needed.